Barack Obama's former top spy chief is feeling the heat. Yes, I said top spy chief. James Clapper appears to be worried about keeping his own security clearance, especially after President Trump correctly pulled unhinged John Brennan's clearance last week, citing his erratic behavior, especially when he wrongfully and foolishly accused President Trump of treason, obviously without any evidence whatsoever. None documented, no evidence to be found. Former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper stated that he thinks former CIA Director John Brennan's rhetoric is becoming an issue in and of itself. John and his rhetoric have become an issue, and John is subtle like a freight train, and he's gonna say what's on his mind. Clapper's comments came in response to an op-ed penned by John Brennan in the New York Times of all places, in which he wrote that President Trump colluded with Russia during the 2016 election. Well, John, where is your proof? You have none. Otherwise, that document would be linked in the New York Times. Of course, John Clapper stated that he empathized with John Brennan, but voiced concerns for Brennan's fiery rhetoric towards Trump's administration. I think that the common denominator among all of us in the intelligence community that have been speaking up, of course, is genuine concern about the jeopardy and threats to our institutions. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, they knew that when Hillary Rodham Clinton lost the election, they were all in trouble. John Brennan's claims have drew criticism from some in the intelligence community who said the timing was funny and suspect. Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Richard Burr, Republican of North Carolina, stated that he took aim at Brennan for purporting to know as fact that the Trump campaign colluded with a foreign power. Well, where's his evidence at? Senator Burr continued, if his statement is based on intelligence he has seen since leaving office, of course, it constitutes an intelligence breach. If he has some other personal knowledge or evidence of collusion, it should be disclosed to the special counsel, not the New York Times. Well, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the New York Times pays you for this rhetoric, but the special counsel does not. Burr added that Trump has the full authority to rescind security clearance if the statements were purely political and based on conjecture. President Trump revoked Brennan's security clearance last week, saying that his lying and recent conduct characterized by increasingly frenzied commentary is wholly inconsistent with access to the nation's most closely held secrets and facilities, the very aim of our adversaries, which is to sow division and chaos. Of course, the widely criticized move was seen as a punitive measurement against one of Trump's most outspoken critics. More than 60 former intelligence officials denounced Trump's decision, stating that ex-intelligence officials should have the right to express their opinions on national security matters without punishment. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, this report states that more than 60 former intelligence officials. I'd like to see that document that states that. It's probably much less. According to those officials, all of us believe it is critical to protect classified information from unauthorized disclosure, but we believe equally strongly that former government officials, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I said former government officials, have the right to express their unclassified views on what they see as critical national security issues without fear of being punished for doing so. Really? Former government officials? To express their unclassified views? And of course, Clapper this week also criticized the Trump administration for its decision, joining more than a dozen high-ranking intelligence officials, now they're saying a dozen instead of more than 60, those dozen who have supposedly signed a letter censoring the president for the move. How can they censor him for anything?
I have a unique constitutional responsibility to protect the nation's classified information, including by controlling access to it. Today, in fulfilling that responsibility, I've decided to revoke the security clearance of John Brennan, former director of the Central Intelligence Agency. First, at this point in my administration, any benefits that senior officials might glean from consultations with Mr. Brennan are now outweighed by the risks posed by his erratic conduct and behavior. Second, that conduct and behavior has tested and far exceeded the limits of any professional courtesy that may have been due to him. Mr. Brennan has a history that calls into question his objectivity and credibility.
I think this is yet another example of his egregious abuse of power and authority. Just because he has the ability to revoke one's clearance doesn't mean that he is doing it for the appropriate reasons. Indeed, he violated the process that he himself, his administration, put out last year in terms of the basis for revoking security clearances. So I think it was just designed to distract the press from some of the other things that were going on last week. But I've spoken out against Mr. Trump's lack of decency, civility, honesty, and character, and I will continue to do that because I have always revered the office of the presidency. And I think Mr. Trump is letting millions upon millions of Americans down.
Yeah, I think it's the right move by the president. Communist John Brennan never should have had a security clearance.
Well, he voted for a communist candidate in 1970.
And he supported that way of life, and the president made the right decision in revoking his security clearance. You look at what he did in his official capacity, Brian. He oversaw the Iran deal and all the intelligence. He manipulated ISIS intelligence for President Obama. He was part of the Russian hacking. He's standing down the cyber team to allow the Russian hacking in 2016. He had a secret meeting in March of 2016 with Russia. He flew to Moscow. And so there's a lot of evidence here. He met with Harry Reid and gave him parts of the unverified Clinton paid-for dossier.
And Harry Reid said later, I guess the word was, go announce this.
Right. And then he spied on American citizens and lied in front of Congress about that spying. And in question 29 on the security clearance form says, have you ever supported overthrowing the U.S. government? All you got to do is look at Brennan's tweets, and he supports the removal of this president. And right there, that's enough evidence to get rid of his clearance.
And he's been quite inflammatory in his comments. We could go on for hours, but here's 29 seconds.
Well, I made my feelings known about Mr. Brennan. I think most Americans look at our national intelligence experts as being above politics. Mr. Brennan has demonstrated that that's not the case. He's been totally political. I think I called him a butthead, and I meant it. I think he's given the national intelligence community a bad name.
Donald Trump has badly sullied the reputation of the office of the presidency. Mr. Trump continues to have his ignorance of the facts or willful disregard of them. I and so many other former national security officials are speaking out because of the abnormal and aberrant behavior of Mr. Trump.
And that's just a little bit of it. It goes on forever. But, we rolled Senator Kennedy first. He's a supporter of the president in this case, not all the time. And then you hear Brennan's comments. You just think they're inappropriate, even though he's hired to give his opinion.
Yeah, Brian, I don't think it has anything to do with his comments. I think that John Brennan is a clear and present danger and a threat to this nation. He supports the overthrow of this particular president, and he needed to have his access to information revoked. When you look at his track record officially, he was station chief, Khobar Towers, Saudi Arabia. He had one job, and that was protect American lives, and he failed there. And he messed up and moved up.
He was station chief in Saudi Arabia at the time.
That's right.
All right, Senator Warner feels differently. He wants to pass legislation to protect those with clearances. So, General, thanks so much for your opinion.
Thanks, Brian.